Spine-chilling discovery. James Webb exposes a sinister, ancient alien structure at the universe. The whole world gasped, breathless and uneasy, as news broke of a terrifying discovery. An eerie structure that looked like a monstrous face loomed in the depths of space. Lisa, a night shift nurse and single mom living in a quiet Detroit suburb, felt her heart thud in her chest as she read the headline. James Webb exposes a sinister, ancient alien structure at the universe. The sense of dread was palpable, rising like a fog in her small home. Just as she was settling down to sleep after another grueling shift, sighing over the sterile scent of antiseptics and the warmth of her children's sleeping bodies, terror gripped her, refusing to let go. For weeks, the peaceful lives of her and her kids, Emily and Jake, had started to unravel. It began with subtle oddities. A cat vanished. A neighbor's dog began barking at nothing in the air, howling into the creepy twilight. She brushed it off. After all, her focus remained on ensuring her family was safe and secure within their vibrant community. Yet, as vivid dreams of shadowy figures filled Emily's nights, Lisa could feel an unsettling current thrumming through her neighborhood, tainting its calm facade. Flickering lights danced on the horizon, casting a ghostly glow that made her heart race with inexplicable fear. Then came Mr. Thompson, the local science teacher with an undeniable charisma. He had a way of talking about the stars that sent excitement rippling through Lisa. But just beneath the surface, a chill wormed its way into her thoughts. He theorized about ancient civilizations, the implications of intergalactic life, his eyes sparking with an odd intensity. Conversations with him opened doors to fears she had never considered. As he spoke, she noticed her neighbors' faces contort, painted with paranoia she would never noticed before. Gatherings in the dead of night flickered with candles, cloaked figures whispering beneath a veil of darkness. It was all wrong. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But nothing prepared her for the night her kids started to change. Emily began speaking in low whispers, words tumbling out that sent chills down Lisa's spine. Jake awoke screaming, scratching at his arms, clawing at strange markings sprouting on his skin, feverish and shaking. The whispers grew louder, their content more disconcerting, running straight through her, pulling her apart from the inside out. Her beloved suburb morphed into a haunted battleground, innocence stripped bare. One glance at Thompson's knowing smirk made her blood run cold. The things he said twist and turn, threatening to ensnare her. It was as if those watching from the shadows were waiting for her to falter, to slip. Each face she recognized, their hidden secrets swimming in her memory like poison. The shadows crawled closer, inching forth an unseen dread that labeled her a stranger in her own home. She was losing her grip, caught in this terrifying whirlwind pushing against everything she held sacred. Now, the night wrapped around her like tendrils of darkness, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched not just by the twisted truths in her own community, but by something far more malevolent lurking just beyond the stars. Time was running out. What truth awaited her in the dark? The night closed in, thickening around Lisa like a suffocating shroud. She glanced out the window, her breath hitching in her throat. The familiar suburban landscape transformed into an alien wilderness. The shadows moved between the trees, and the air felt charged, alive with whispers of dread. She instinctively backed away from the window, heart racing. "Mommy?" Emily's voice pierced the stillness. Lisa turned, ready for a sweet hug, but the wide-eyed look on her daughter's face sent a chill spiraling down her spine. Emily stood at the doorway, swaying slightly, Her hair peppered with darkness, the shadows clung to her, as if alive. "Everything's okay, sweetie," Lisa said, though the tremor in her own voice betrayed her. "They're coming, they're watching," Emily murmured, her voice draped in a raspy tone that wasn't quite her own. The room felt colder, a menacing chill wrapping around Lisa like icy fingers. "Who is coming?" she asked, forcing every word to stay calm, even as panic clawed at her throat. "The shadows, Mommy. They're here." Emily pointed toward the darkened hallway, her small finger trembling. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribcage, and she wanted to shake the fear, to deny what she knew was creeping closer. The stories she had ignored, the subtle changes in her kids, the whispers floating on the wind all fell into place like grotesque puzzle pieces. Suddenly, Jake's scream sliced through the oppressive silence. Lisa bolted down the hallway and swung open his bedroom door. The sight before her was more than she could bear. Jake lay twisted on the bed, squirming, skin slick with sweat, clawing at the bed linens. His eyes were wild, rolling around in his head like he was battling unseen horrors. "Mom! Help! Please!" His voice broke with terror, startling her into action. "Jake, sweetheart, look at me!" She rushed to him, gripping his shoulders. "What is wrong?" A guttural laugh echoed in the air, carrying with it the scent of decay and something more sinister. As if in response, Jake's body convulsed hard, his eyes resettling on hers, but now there was nothing human in their depths. There were just voids, cold, empty, and hungry. "They want to take us," he rasped, his voice far too deep for his small frame. "They're already here." Darkness began to swirl around them, creeping closer like black ink in water. Lisa felt squirming tendrils reaching for her mind, wrapping around her thoughts. She shook her head violently, unwilling to give in, forcing back the pull of the terror trying to slip inside her. "They're watching us from above," Jake croaked, lifting his arm to point toward the ceiling. "They'll come through the light." Panic surged within her, and a desperate instinct to protect her children surged forth. "Get up, Jake. We have to go outside. We need to." But before she could finish, the lights in the house flickered violently, taut like a bowstring ready to snap. In that moment, everything shifted. The walls began to whisper in a twisted language, one she couldn't understand but felt deep in her bones. "Wait!" Emily's voice cut through the chaos, a horrified realization etched on her face. Not the porch, the basement. Lisa's heart raced. The basement had remained untouched since they moved in, a dark, looming threat under their feet. As if the house itself held secrets of an unspeakable nature, now beckoning for the unsuspecting family to unlock its horrors. "Emily, no! We're not going down there." But the panic in her voice was drowned out by an overwhelming compulsion rising within her, a call to dissent. Something scratched at the door, cold and unrelenting. Fear clawed at her throat, and she could hardly breathe. The basement, the darkness, the whispers, all it took was one choice, one step, and they would be caught in a web that had been spun many years before. They stood at the precipice of a decision, every heartbeat marking the weight of fate. What secret lay in the shadowy depths below? Would she lead her family into the darkness from which no one returned? The call of the basement tugged at Lisa like a dark promise, beckoning with whispers too soft to grasp. Panic surged within her, battling against the instinct to protect her children. The air felt charged, thick with a blend of fear and something primal, something ancient lurking just beneath the surface. "Mommy!" Jake screamed again, his voice slicing through the haze. The tendrils of darkness twisted closer, curling around Lisa's ankles like serpents. She fought the urge to retreat entirely, shaking her head, as though to dislodge the terrible thoughts binding her. "They're in the walls!" Jake gasped, his breathing ragged. "They want us to go down there!" Emily swayed again, her tiny shoulder brushing against the doorframe, eyes wide with an unnatural light. "I know, Mommy. I've seen them. They come in the night, and they play tricks." Her words trailed off, fear shimmering in her voice. The scratching at the door intensified, a frantic crescendo that sent shivers up her spine. It thudded like a heartbeat, urgent and more alive than a mere sound. The shadows slithered closer. Tendrils of darkness reached out, eagerly anticipating the moment she would falter. Lisa's breath came in short gasps. A movement caught her eye, a flicker of light from the basement door. "We need to leave now," she shouted, shaking off the cold grip of despair. Keeping one eye on the hallway shadows, she grabbed Jake and pulled him off the bed, while Emily, drawn by an unseen force, shoved her small feet forward. "No!" Lisa screamed, panic clawing like claws at her throat. "Stay with me." But Emily was already walking toward the door, moving like a marionette whose strings had been severed. Lisa lunged for her daughter, but in the briefest moment of hesitation, a shudder ran through the air. The lights flickered again, casting the room into a white-hot brightness, then plunging everything back into pitch darkness. "Mommy, I want to see," Emily whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "No! Stay here." Then it hit her, the unmistakable sound of laughter bubbling from the basement. It was choppy and raw, a cruel thing that gnawed at her senses. Helplessly, Lisa felt drawn toward the door. She could almost hear promises wrapped in that laughter, filled with innocence but tinged with something malicious, dark like the night. Jake gripped her wrist, his eyes pleading. "Mom, don't let them take us." The shadows contorted, keeping at distance yet growing bolder. Lisa's heart thundered as she registered her children's terrified faces. Who were these things? What did they want? Suddenly, Emily turned to face her mother. "Mommy, the light, they come through the light." A flicker ignited in Emily's eyes, a mix of understanding and defiance. "We can make them leave." The walls hissed, the darkness swirling tighter around them. A sickening thrum pulsed through the floor, whispering secrets meant only for those vulnerable enough to listen. With a shove of panic, Lisa lunged for the hallway, dragging her children along. Would the shadows allow them to escape? Each step echoed in the corridor, her pulse fast and furious. She looked back, her eyes darting to the open basement door behind them, the shadows writhing within like they were alive, yearning for flesh, hungry for souls. But where to go? What safety lay just beyond the threshold of their home? It felt like they were trapped in a game orchestrated by malevolent hands, the rules shifting with every breath. "Mom!" Jake cried, "they'll find us." The lingering laugh sliced through the chaos, a promise of retribution that made every hair prick on her scalp. She could almost hear it whispering, taunting, "What would you sacrifice?" With a final push fueled by raw instinct, they broke through the front door into the cold night. But the darkness followed, swirling and coiling around them, as the shadows slipped from the house, no longer confined. And in that moment of decision, would they push forward into the wild of the night in search of refuge, or would they retreat back into the dark where the unknown tangled with their very sanity? But before they could decide, the laughter twisted louder, more distinct, a voice uncoiling from the darkness. Welcome back, it beckoned, dripping with malice. What awaited them out there in the cold grasp of the night? Would they ever find safety, or simply fall deeper into the shadow's snare? The chill of the night air stung Lisa's lungs as they stumbled away from their home, breathless and terrified. The cold pressed against her skin like a warning. Shadows danced in the periphery of her vision, a dark tide washing over the yard, swaying like a living thing. "Mom, we need to run," Jake squeaked, tugging at her arm, his wide eyes reflecting sheer panic. Lisa turned to look down the street. There was nothing but darkness stretching endlessly ahead, the streetlights flickering weakly, barely pushing back the night. Where do we go?" she managed to shout over her rising dread, scanning their surroundings for escape. Emily's head tilted slightly, as if listening to a whisper that only she could hear. They want to play. Mommy, I can hear them. Her tone was eerie, sing-song but laden with fear. It nodded Lisa. No, no, Lisa said, shaking her head violently. They needed to move, needed to break free of the pull of the darkness that seemed to wrap around their home like a net. But something about her daughter's expression sent a chill spiraling through her. We should go back, Emily said, as though someone else was speaking through her. It's safe down there. Safe? Lisa's voice rose, panic smashing against reason. What is down there, Emily? What do you know? Jake squeezed her hand tighter, his small body trembling against the encroaching shadows. Mom, I don't want to hear them. They'll come for us. The darkness stirred restlessly. Lisa could almost feel it breathing, aware and hungry. Suddenly, a bellowing laugh erupted from the depths of the night, echoing like thunder, sharp and mocking. It carved through her thoughts, stealing her focus. Run! She yelled, pulling her children forward, their small feet stumbling as they darted toward the street. But as they turned to sprint, the laughter morphed, twisting, breaking into several voices all calling her name, coaxing, taunting her to listen. It was maddening. Each step felt like wading through thick fog, the air heavy with dread. Trees loomed, branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, and the breeze carried a rancid, damp scent that made her gag. Where is Daddy? Emily asked suddenly, her voice frail. That question, sharp and raw, struck Lisa like a physical blow. How could she tell them? How could she explain the absence when fear burned in their eyes? He is coming soon. We just need to stay together, Lisa lied, the truth slipping away like shadows against the light. But deep down, a whisper tightened around her heart, even darker than the night. Did she really believe that? Did she dare to offer her children false hope? At the end of the street, a low glow flickered. A house stood, cloaked in moonlight, its windows alight like watchful eyes. It felt wrong, unnatural, a sanctuary erected out of despair. Over there. Lisa pointed, fear mingling with a desperate hope. We need to see if anyone is there. As they approached, something shifted in the shadows. The atmosphere crackled with tension, electric and suffocating. The laughter faded, swallowed by a thick silence that made Lisa's throat dry. It felt as though the world held its breath, waiting for them to take a final step. In that heartbeat, she turned back. The darkness had thickened, a living mass creeping closer, pulsing with each heartbeat. With a shudder, she felt the eyes of unseen things watching them through the night, their intentions shrouded in malice. Mom! It's getting closer! Jake yelled, clutching onto her leg. Gritting her teeth, Lisa rallied her strength. She pushed the fear aside, forcing herself to concentrate. Just keep moving, she urged, shoving back against the shadows that loomed. But the sounds returned, soft whispers curling around her, begging her to step back, to give in to the shadows. You can't escape, they hissed, snaking their way into her mind. At the porch of the house, Lisa reached for the door, her pulse quickening with terror. She pushed it open, the creaking sound a wailing scream cutting through the silence. But as they stepped inside, the air shifted. What lay inside was an echo of what they had left behind, a pale reflection of the very darkness they fled from. And the door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the night. From the shadows, a voice whispered, "Welcome to your new home." Now, the real terror was just beginning. What had they allowed into their lives? What nightmarish game awaited them here? The interior of the house was suffocating, thick with a musty scent, as if it had not been disturbed in years. Flickering candlelight from an unseen source barely illuminated the room, casting elongated shadows that seemed to claw at the walls. Each corner held remnants of long-forgotten lives, dusty furniture, crumbling photographs, and a lonely piano that looked ready to play a soul-wrenching melody. "Mommy, I don't like it," Jake whimpered, his voice barely a whisper as he clutched her shirt. Emily knelt down, staring at strange patterns on the floor, her eyes glazing over as if caught in a trance. The room felt wrong, like walking into a dream that had twisted into a nightmare. "Emily!" Lisa snapped, leaning down to her daughter, but Emily only shook her head, gazing deeper into the floor's worn surface. "We need to move." The air grew heavy, pressing in on them, stifling any hope of escape. Lisa's mind raced. There had to be a way out. But all she could hear was the oppressive silence, thickening around them, wrapping them tighter in its grip. Suddenly, a soft creaking echoed from the darkened hallway beyond. Lisa stiffened, eyes darting toward the source. Something was moving in the shadows. "Stay close," she urged, pulling Jake and Emily closer, their breaths quickening. As they edged further into the dimly lit room, a chill ran down Lisa's spine. The whispers returned, filling the space with low, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from everywhere. "They want to play," Emily sang again, that haunting melody floating just out of reach of comprehension. "Emily, stop!" Lisa said, her voice rising in fear. In her daughter's eyes, she saw something that twisted her heart, a flicker of joy mingled with an unsettling calm. "We need to find a way out." "Mommy, they're just friendly," Emily argued, her expression shifting into one of stubborn innocence. "They showed me the way." Lisa recoiled. "What do you mean? Who?" But before Emily could answer, the piano burst into discordant notes, shrieking against the silence. It felt alive, an angry beast yowling in pain. The force of sound whipped through the room, rattling the windows, slashing at Lisa's resolve. "Make it stop!" Jake screamed, hands covering his ears. The walls seemed to pulse, throbbing in time with the chaotic music. Lisa, adrenaline soaring, darted toward the piano, desperate to silence the din. But as she reached for it, her fingers brushed against something cold and smooth, a small white mask resting on the piano, eerily expressionless. "Mommy, don't!" Jake cried, but the pull of the mask was strong, tugging at her very being. She lifted it, turning it over in her hands. The eyes of the mask stared back at her, dark and hollow. A chill bit through her, freezing her heart. "This is wrong," she murmured, sensing the danger as shadows deepened around them. And then the whispers intensified, rising in a chaotic clamor. Join us, they twisted in her mind like snakes, serrated and sharp, gnawing at her thoughts. A surge of despair washed over her, threatening to drown her. "Run!" Lisa shouted, urgency fueling her. She dropped the mask and backed away, her heart racing. She grabbed Emily's hand and pulled Jake along as they stumbled through the dimly lit room, their eyes wide, searching for an escape. "Where? Where?" Jake's voice trembled as panic gripped him. "Anywhere but here," Lisa shouted, dread tightening around them. They reached a doorway at the far end, but as they stepped through, it snapped shut behind them with a resounding thud, plunging them into darkness. Just as Lisa forced herself to breathe, a bright light flickered into existence, revealing a vast, empty hallway lined with mirrors. "Mommy! Look!" Emily's voice echoed, captured by the glass. But Lisa was already frozen, staring at the reflections that multiplied what should be just three. Instinctively, she turned sideways, trying to catch a glimpse of what lurked behind them. But the reflections kept multiplying, and something sinister stood just beyond their own. Their mirrored selves grinned widely, with hollow eyes that bore into her. She felt the air grow colder, a dread tightening in her chest. "Turn back!" Lisa screamed, her heart pounding in her ears. The hallway twisted and turned, leading deeper into the shadows where the laughter of unseen children echoed, and where the darkness now felt alive, swirling around them. Standing at the brink of revelation, she realized they might be trapped forever in a place where time and truth were distorted, all because of that insidious game. And in the depths of the hallway, a voice resounded, low and crooning. You shouldn't have opened that door. The voice was close now, curling around them like smoke. Lisa whipped around, clutching Emily's hand tightly, fear gnawing at her insides. "Where are you?" she shouted, her voice betraying her rising panic. Here it echoed back. The air thickened as if it were alive, wrapping around them, pressing in. Jake whimpered softly, a mere breath of sound. "Mommy, I want to go home." Lisa's heart ached at his words. Home felt like a distant memory now, swallowed by shadow. "Keep moving," she urged, pulling them forward. They stepped deeper into the hallway, mirrors lining the walls, reflecting their every move. But in those reflections, she saw things that shouldn't be there, figures lurking just at the edges, their faces twisted into grins that sent shivers down her spine. "Mommy, look!" Emily pointed, her voice filled with awe. "They waved at me." Lisa's stomach churned. "What do you mean?" She turned to see what Emily was pointing at, but the mirrors only stared back, distorting the children's fear into sinister glee. "Run!" Lisa screamed again, the command racing out of terror as she yanked the children along. The laughter grew louder, jarring and piercing, surrounding them, a cacophony of mirth mixed with malice. Knots tightened in her chest as shadows flickered in and out of view. Those reflections, were they just her imagination? Or was something truly lurking within those glass confines, influenced by their fear, hungry for despair? They darted past doorways of broken glass, each step echoing with dread, every footfall a countdown. Lisa felt the walls close in, her breath quickening. The shadows were relentless, racing after them. "We need a way out," Jake cried, desperation lacing his tone. A glimmer of hope glinted at the end of the hallway, a door, slightly ajar, light spilling out. "There." Lisa pointed, pulling the children toward the door. With each stride, the laughter turned into malign whispers again, crawling under her skin. "You can't escape, don't listen to them," she shouted over her shoulder, but the voices slithered through her resolve, nestled in the folds of her thoughts. Just as they reached the door, a swift force slammed it shut before they could reach it, sealing them in deeper darkness. "No! Let us out!" she bellowed, pounding her fists against the solid wood. But the only reply was prolonged silence. Then, the mirrors began to shift. They twisted unnaturally, contorting their reflections into twisted, monstrous forms. "Emily!" Lisa cried, spinning to face her. "Stay close. Stay with me." But Emily stood frozen, entranced by her reflection. "Mommy, they want to play," she cooed softly, a smile creeping onto her face. "Emily, no! Don't listen." Lisa's mind raced. Her daughter's eyes were wide, sparkling with something other than fear, as sinister allure. A cold sweat dripped down Lisa's back, panic surging. The whispers grew louder, chanting Emily's name, drawing her in like a moth to a flickering flame. "Join us," they sang, in eerily cheerful unison. "Stop it! Stop!" Lisa cried, reaching out for her daughter, but shadows wrapped around Emily like vines, pulling her toward the mirror. "Mommy! Help!" Emily's face twisted in fear, her tiny hands stretched out. With a primal roar, Lisa grabbed Jake and lunged for her daughter, the world shrinking around them. But as she reached for Emily, something in the mirror shifted. The reflection held not just her daughter, but something else, something dark and ancient creeping behind, enveloping Emily in a chilling embrace. "Run!" Lisa shouted again, but the darkness surged, swallowing everything in sight, and suddenly, Lisa found herself alone in the hallway, only the echoes of laughter and whispers remaining. Alone, with a choice to make, to continue deeper into the darkness or to seek out whatever had taken her children. The walls tightened around her, as the whispers grew more insistent, wrapping her mind in despair. If she didn't act soon, she might lose them both forever and perhaps become one of the lost souls herself. What was waiting for her at the end of this sudden silence? The silence pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Shadows danced at the corners of Lisa's vision, flitting like moles beneath dirt, which only deepened her dread. "Emily!" she called again, her voice trembling. Every crack and creak of the hallway mocked her. Where had the children gone? The empty space felt like a gaping maw, ready to swallow her whole. She took shuddering breaths, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Forced to move, she stepped back towards the nearest mirror, her reflection rippling like water disturbed. The faces she saw grinning, gloating sent a wave of nausea crashing through her. "Stop this!" she screamed, hoping to shatter the illusion. Their laughter washed over her, a sardonic wave of echoes, as the walls seemed to pulse, breathing with sinister intent. "Help!" she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. A low murmur coalesced in the air, forming recognizable words. "Come find us, Lisa." The voice was chilling, playful yet predatory. It felt personal, an invitation. Focus. She had to focus. No turning back. Digging her nails into her palms, she steeled herself, choosing to follow the path of the whispers, deeper into the chaos. The light from the mirrors flickered, and she avoided their gaze, knowing the reflection was just showing her something else lurked beyond. Turning down the corridor, she stumbled upon a larger room bathed in an unsettling glow. A broken chandelier hung like a skeletal hand, the glass shards scattered on the floor looked like teeth. In the center of the room, a mirror towered, more imposing than the others. It was different, ornate, with strange markings carving its surface. The whispers intensified, blending with the sound of her heartbeat. "Look, just look," it beckoned, malevolent joy threaded within its tone. Against her better judgment, she approached the mirror. A distorted image of herself stared back, but behind that familiar face, she caught glimpses of something else. Emily's little form, lost in swirling shadows, Jake's frightened expression shimmering just out of reach, faces trapped in glassy terror. "Mommy!" The tiny voice sliced through her heart, igniting a fierce anger within. "Enough!" she shouted, slamming her fist against the frame. The mirror trembled, the reflection shattering into 1,000 glints of wicked light. A horrid laughter erupted, voices overlapping her children's cries melted into the sinister glee, a symphony of fear. And then, with a sudden rush, the glass morphed, swirling into a vortex, pulling her closer. "Join us," the echoing voices sang, melding into a haunting lullaby. Lisa staggered back, her world spinning. Her hands trembled, but with sheer willpower, she turned and raced away from the mirror. "I won T," she yelled, her defiance igniting fleeting hope. As she ran, the entire structure trembled, walls vibrating, the ceiling creaking ominously. "You can't escape," the shadows taunted. Dark tendrils whipped around her ankles, trying to ensnare her. Terror screamed through her veins. She needed an exit. She darted for the edge of the room, eyes scanning for a passageway, something, anything. In a far corner, a small door appeared, barely visible behind layers of grime. She lunged for it as the darkness closed in, shrieking whispers clawing at her sanity, desperate to reclaim her. Without a thought, she flung open the door and dashed through. But as it shut behind her with a resounding thud, she was met by a chilling sight. Before her stretched an endless corridor lined with doors, each one identical and heavy, and each filled with muffled cries. But at the end of it, a single dim light flickered, faintly illuminating the dark path ahead. What if it led to freedom? Or something far worse? With nowhere else to go, she pressed on, her breath hitching with every step. Shadows loomed closer, and the whispers merged into a single chilling chant. "You're not alone," and then, more loudly than ever, a unified scream erupted from the darkness. Her children's voices echoed around her, begging for release. Lisa clutched her head, the weight of dread. enveloping her. Would she find them? Or would she too be sucked into this nightmare? The chilling uncertainty pushed her forward, heart racing. What awaited her beyond the flickering light? Was it hope or another trap waiting to ensnare her just like before? The corridor stretched infinitely, shadows flickering like the disturbed surface of water. Each door lined the walls as if beckoning her, a siren-esque call. She felt an invisible weight pushing against her back, urging her onward, as if whatever haunted this place yearned for her presence. Not alone whispered the shadows, their words slithering into her ears, wrapping around her mind. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, fighting the rising panic. Deep breaths. Focus. But opening her eyes only exposed the sheer horror of her surroundings. The dim light at the end pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her closer even as dread pooled in the pit of her stomach. The muffled cries intensified, a chorus of fear, the voices tangling together a symphony of the terrified. "Emily! Jake!" she cried, her voice echoing in the tight corridor, bouncing off the oppressive walls. The fear surged like a thunderstorm within her. With little choice, she moved toward the flickering light, her heart hammering faster with each step. She reached for the nearest door, its surface cold and unwelcoming. It trembled as she pressed her palm against it, the cries now merging into a singular plea, "Let us out." Throwing the door open, Lisa was met with a blinding light that disoriented her for just a second. She stumbled back, and the door slammed shut behind her, locking out the chilling chorus. But that brief flash had revealed something much worse. The room she had entered was vast, stretching indefinitely to all sides, but it was not empty. In the center stood a large, ornate table, and on it were scattered faded photographs. A sickly sweet smell permeated the air. She stepped closer, her hand shaking as she picked one up. The image was worn, and Lisa realized her hands quivered with an unfamiliar energy, a potent mix of fear and something deep inside closeness. In the photograph, two children played in a sunlit park, laughter frozen in time. They looked so familiar. Hope thudded in her chest, but it quickly soured as she glanced closer. The children's faces were twisted. Grinning, yes, but not with joy. Something darker lurked in their eyes. They felt too alive. Not mere memories, but actual binding shackles, anchoring her to this horrifying locale. She dropped the photo as if it burned her. The sound of glass shattering erupted from another part of the vast room. Her heart raced again, the storm of panic crashing in like fierce waves. "No, no," she murmured, stepping back, scanning the room for shadows or dangers. Just then, from the corner, she spotted a window, partially covered by thick, oily curtains that seemed to breathe. Without thinking, she rushed toward it, desperate for escape. Reaching for the fabric, images sparked in her mind, flashes of a life before, laughter, sunny days, and family cookouts. But they were eclipsed by the dark undertones that had invaded her memories. As the curtain pulled aside, a chill enveloped her. Outside loomed a vast, twisted landscape, a realm where the sun never shone. Everything was muted, washed in grays and blacks. Bodies, or what looked like bodies, were tangled within thorny vines, their faces frozen in despair, some eerily reminiscent of her children. She gasped, stumbling back, her breath hitching. A voice, soft yet cruel, slithered into her mind. "Would you like to join them?" The murmur melted into laughter, and Lisa felt a cold hand brush her shoulder, freezing her in place. Was it real or a trick of her mind? "No!" she screamed, turning abruptly, desperate to escape, but the room seemed to warp around her. The tables and photos twisted, the walls trembling, closing in. With her heart pounding, she pivoted to find an exit or to search for her children once more. The shadows began to laugh again, deeper this time, dragging her back into the depths. Desperation surged as she dashed toward the only dimly lit pathway in sight. But as she ran, the haunting whispers crescendoed. You can't escape, you'll be hours just ahead. The shadows seemed to snarl, a vortex of dark energy swirling hungrily, ready to collapse on her. The flickering light wavered, promising safety, yet the certainty of dread gnawed at her insides. Would she find her children? Would this be her end? As she plunged forward, she realized the darkness was just behind her. It was everywhere. With a final cry, the floor beneath her shifted. Would she survive? Or were these cloaked nightmares simply too powerful? Even as she struggled to reach the light, another echo emerged, a new cry among the chaos, one she wished she had not heard. Help us! She threw herself down the narrow pathway, the shadows snapping at her heels, their laughter echoing like a gruesome melody. Each footfall felt like a countdown to her doom. The dim light in the distance flickered erratically, almost mocking her with its false hope. No! She screamed, her voice swallowed by the darkness. I want to be yours. As she sprinted towards the light, images of her children flooded her mind. Emily's bright smile, Jake's joyful laugh. She could almost feel their warmth. Eyes front, she kept pushing forward, each stride pulling her further from the abyss that threatened to engulf her. But the shadows laughed again, a cacophony of echoes that tightened around her throat. You will join them soon, they taunted, sending icy fingers of dread creeping over her skin. The air thickened, each breath like inhaling shards of glass. Then, suddenly, everything shifted. The walls of the corridor began to morph, twisting and now pulsing like they were alive. Lisa's mind swirled. Was she still awake? Dread swallowed the remnants of hope. She couldn't tell if the light was real, but she had no choice. Just as she approached, the floor bucked beneath her, sending her tumbling to the ground. Pain exploded in her knees, but she scrambled back to her feet, heart pounding like a war drum. A glimmer of movement caught her eye. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked but distinctly human. Relief washed over her. Help! She shouted. Please, I'm looking for my kids. The figure paused, its face obscured, then extended a hand. This way. It beckoned, the voice distorted, draped in whispers. Follow me quickly. Lisa hesitated. Something about the figure felt wrong, but the thought of her children spurred her forward. She reached for the hand, and at the last moment, she noticed its fingers were unnaturally long, and the skin looked like a pallid film stretched over bone. Panic clawed at her throat. Where are you taking me? She demanded as she took a step back. Beyond the veil they are waiting. A sense of dread crashed over her. The shadows stirred restlessly. The whispers turned into a deafening roar, mingling with the figure's unsettling presence. This isn't right, she gasped, ducking away. The figure lunged forward, and panic seized her entire being. She spun, her body reacting before her brain could catch up, and sprinted back towards the light. As she ran, the corridor twisted even further, losing its shape like a funhouse mirage, the shadows writhing in anticipation. They splintered into grotesque shapes, faces forming within the darkness, eyes wide and hungry. What do you want? She yelled, desperation fueling her voice, but it echoed back to her 1,000 mocking voices muttering, join us. Suddenly, she broke through the warping corridor and found herself in a new area, a wide-open atrium under a sky bruised with red and black. The air crackled, thick with dark energy, charged with tension. And then, she froze. In front of her, like an altar to despair, lay remnants of what seemed like a playground. Rusting swings hung limply, creaking in the stagnant air. A faded slide cast shadows that danced menacingly in the flickering light. The sight bore an uncanny resemblance to the playground where her children used to play. Her heart lurched. No, she whispered, realization crashing like a tidal wave. The laughter, the cries, this was their world, twisted irrevocably by darkness. She saw shadows flitting in and out of view. her children Emily, Jake. But the silence was deafening. The shadows expanded, swirling in turmoil. She felt it deep in her bones. Something sinister was lurking just out of reach, waiting. Then, the atmosphere shifted. From behind her, a voice echoed, a younger voice, innocent yet chilling. "Mommy? Help us!" Lisa's breath caught in her throat. A chill raced down her spine. The playground, the shadows, it was all connected. And as the whisper started again, she understood with gut-wrenching clarity. Leave now or never leave at all. She stood at a crossroads, resolve hardening in her chest. Would she confront the growing darkness or flee into the unknown? With her heart pounding, she prepared for one last desperate attempt to find her children, knowing this time she had to push deeper into the ever-stretching shadows. But lurking behind her, something stirred in the depths, an ominous presence, hungry for her spirit and resolution, the ultimate price. What awaited Lisa next? Lisa's heart raced as she stood at the threshold of the playground, fear coiling tightly in her chest. Shadows flickered around her, a terrifying reminder of what she had lost. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the whispered cries of her children tugged at her soul, urging her to stay. "Mommy!" Emily's sweet voice echoed again, innocent and pleading, making her blood run cold. She turned slowly, heart gripped with dread, summoning every ounce of strength, and shouted back into the blackness, "I'm coming. I won't leave you." With each word, a wave of determination washed over her. Taking a deep breath, she stepped further into the playground bastion of memories, searching for any sign of her children. The rusted swings groaned with the weight of her fear as she walked past, the cold metal touching a thread of nostalgia that only deepened her resolve. She needed to reclaim what was stolen from her. The shadows writhed hungrily, eager to pull her into their depths. She felt the chill creeping closer, heard the laughter morph into clicks and whispers, taunting her resolve. "You'll join us. You'll never leave, not today," she shouted defiantly, her voice slicing through the oppressive air. The ground beneath her trembled at her cry, the shadows recoiling momentarily in surprise as she pressed on, fueled by a flicker of hope. Then, she saw them. A glimmer of light swirled around the center of the playground, illuminating two small figures trapped within a swirling fog of darkness. Her heart leaped at the sight, an electric jolt surging through her. "Emily! Jake!" she cried, taking a step closer. The children turned, their faces twisted by shadows, but shining with a distant light that felt like a lifeline. "Mommy!" Their voices reached her, mixed with both longing and fear. As she fought against the darker currents swirling around, the laughter erupted again, this time layered with the cries of lost souls. "Join us. They are ours." "No!" Lisa roared, pushing against that suffocating, whispering tide. "You can't have them. I will not break." She darted forward, fighting through the heaviness of the shadows. With each step, she focused on her children, their outstretched hands beckoning her, pushed by the hope of freedom. The closer she got, the more volatile the air became, buzzing with electricity. "Grab my hands, hold on tight," she called out to them, feeling their presence buzz through her like a grounding wire amidst chaos. The moment her fingers touched theirs, warmth surged through her, a brilliant light that seemed to halt the whispers. They nodded, and for a moment, the shadows faltered. Then, a deep rumble echoed throughout the playground. "You can't escape this place," it barked, but Lisa pressed on, a pillar of fierce love and fierce hope. The darkness roiled around them, screaming, but she didn't release her grip on her children. With a sharp draw, Lisa pulled them closer. The world around them began to shift. Blinding light radiated from her grasp. "Hold tight," she yelled as the shadows tightened their grip, shrieking in rage. Vicious tendrils of darkness whipped at her heels, gnashing at her resolve, but she felt the love for her children infusing every fiber of her being, igniting her spirit. And then it happened. A brilliant flash exploded around them. rending the shadows apart like paper, illuminating the playground until it burst into a kaleidoscope of colors. Dazzling light enveloped them, and the darkness screamed, echoing into nothingness. At last, they were free. As the playground faded from view, Lisa found herself outside on the street, breathless but whole, her children clinging to her tightly. They were back in the world, the sky burnt orange with the approaching dawn. The early light felt warm against her skin, illuminating their faces real safe. "Mommy!" Jake cried, his eyes wide with wonder and innocent fear. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, holding them close. "You're safe now." Suddenly, a weight lifted from her, and the oppressive shadows that had haunted them receded like a bad dream. As they stood there, growing warmth spreading around them, Lisa stared at their hands, intertwined. "We did it," she murmured, relief flooding her voice. "We faced the darkness together." Across the street, the dawn painted the rooftops in gold, hinting at promises of new beginnings. She looked at her children. The remnants of fear in their eyes were slowly being replaced with the spark of hope. The battle was over, and they had emerged as a united front. "Promise me we won't let fear control us again," Lisa urged, her voice strong and steady. "Yeah," Emily chimed, brightening, her spirit returning full force. Jake nodded, squeezing her hand tighter. "We won't." And in that moment, a quiet understanding settled between them. They were more than the shadows that had tried to bind them. They were family. Together they could face anything. As the first rays of sunlight spilled over the horizon, Lisa knew their nightmare was behind them. They would emerge from this stronger, united in the knowledge that evil would always try to pull them apart, but together they could conquer even the deepest darkness. Lisa took a deep breath, letting the freedom wash over her. Tomorrow would come, and with it, hope. Now that you've reached the end of this chilling saga, it's time to show your support. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we have in store. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the terror alive. It helps more than you know. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we can spread these tales far and wide.